Well, I was just thinking about all the dumb mistakes I made. Every Saturday, my buddy Alberto would preach out in a rancho. A rancho is a little farm outside the city. People there live very poorly, they live very backwards, a very remote lifestyle. And we would drive out there all the time and go to we would go to out there and he would preach. So finally, after I'd been in language school for quite a while, uh, I don't know, 3 months maybe, I decided I wanted to try to preach to the people for 5 minutes. Might have been 6 months. I don't remember. So I wrote out my message and I had it examined by a whole bunch of people to make sure that it was written right. I tried to memorize it. I read it. And so when we were at the ranch, after I got through preaching, I said, "Hey, how'd I do?" And he said, in Spanish, and I understood by now. He said, "You remember that Bible verse where Paul said, 'I'd rather speak 5 words in a known language'?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "You ought to consider that verse." I was devastated. But along the way to learning a language, you go through a bunch of junk, and that's just one of them. Another one was every day, every Saturday when we would go, he would always, the church that we were part of down there, he bought a pack of cookies, a case of cookies, and he gave all the children cookies, and the last thing he gave away was the box. He'd always hold it up and he'd say, "Who wants the box?" And that word is caja. Well, the word for poop is very close to that, just one letter difference. And I don't speak good Spanish. And so I said one day, I said, "Could I give away the box? Could I give away the box? How childish can you be that you want to give away the box?" He said, "Sure, sure." So I held it up and I said, "Who wants the poop this week?" And of course, everyone just looked at me and laughed. That's what happens when you're trying to learn a language. It's what happens when you're trying to learn a language. It happens because, well, you're learning a language and you're learning something new and you're not saying things right and you're really messing up and so anyway, it's wild and crazy. I'll give you one more story from that area, from that same ranch, and I may have already told it to you, but if I have, you'll just hear it again. Here you go. One night, me and Alberto were the only ones that stayed, and the owner of the ranch, who's now in heaven, said to Alberto, "Why don't y'all stay in and we'll eat together?" And so I went into his house. It had a dirt floor, and it was kind of a domed room, and there was no electricity and no running water, of course, and there was a fire built in the middle of the floor, and there was no chimney. The smoke just kind of went up, and there was a hole up at the top, but no chimney to get the smoke there. And so the smoke had filled the room down to waist level in the room. And we were eating, and I had no idea what we were eating. And I was nervous. When they brought me my drink, I was scared. What if that hadn't been boiled? What if I'm going to get amoebas again? What if I'm going to get sick? And nervous about it all. It turns out that it was coffee, so I was okay. All right, that's good. I can at least that's been cooked a little bit. Maybe that helps. And then they brought out this other food, and I'm trying to figure out what it is, and I'm nervous about it. And all the time, Alberto was just loving it. He is like torturing me. I'm trying to figure out what it is I'm eating, and he is laughing at me and mocking me. And he's using a Spanish word, a Mexican word for turkey. There's a Peruvian and Mexican. There's an international word for turkey, and there's a Mexican word for turkey. Same thing with peanuts and just about everything. I mean, there's like more than one name for it. It's what the Mexican people call it. And they know both words, but they like the Mexican word. I couldn't figure out what he was talking about. Couldn't figure out what it was. And he just laughed, and finally he explained to me, "You're eating turkey." And all of a sudden I felt better. I just want you to know that if you're going to learn a language, you're going to have to put yourself in very awkward, uncomfortable position. Step out of your comfort zone. It may mean you eat things or drink things that you're not used to. It may mean that you sit in a house with smoke down to your waist. But to be honest, it's a lot like a missionary told me in Peru years later when a whole bunch of bad stuff had happened to me. He said, if you don't go through junk, you have no war stories to tell. You'll be the boredest missionary ever. So you live, you learn, you suffer, and it's a lot of fun. And so I want you to know that those missionaries are paying a price to learn the language. And if you're a missionary, I want you to know you can learn the language. Don't you give up. Thank y'all so much for watching, and thank you for being a part of what we're trying to do here, is telling missionary stories. Hope you'll invite other people. Maybe kids might be interested in keeping up, finding out some of these things, and maybe people are interested in missions or whatever. So invite somebody to be with us. Subscribe down below. Put a like. Sure, thank you for being here.